Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here today. We're excited to share more about the Texas Education Freedom Account Program and what it will look like, how you can prepare for the upcoming school year as a private pre-K provider for TEFA students. I'm Jordan Brown. I am the Policy Associate here at Child Care Associates. Me and Shaniqua have kind of been the two leads on our TEFA efforts over the past couple months or so, trying to help get families applied and also getting providers engaged with the program. So we're glad you're here. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So we'll give a little bit of background just in case you're new. I know this program rolled out really, really quickly. It's in its first year. So the Texas Education Freedom Accounts program is an education savings account program that students can use to pay for private school tuition or homeschooling. And that includes pre-K and an eligible childcare program, tutoring, and then other educational costs that aren't associated with a public school. So these funds can be used for the 26-27 school year, and these are for students in ages pre-K all the way up to grade 12. So this is a really great opportunity for our pre-K students. So the potential funding amount for these children is $10,447, $474 per year for students enrolled in private school. So this includes private pre-K programs as well. Students with disabilities can receive up to $30,000 depending on their learning plan. So that can be anywhere between that $10,000 and $30,000 range. And then homeschool students will receive $2,000 for things like curriculum and tutoring expenses. You can go to the next slide. So these funds can be used for a variety of things. We most expect these funds to be used for tuition and fees, since that is typically the most expensive piece of a private education cost. So tuition and fees is a big one. Uniforms that are required by the institution are also allowable. Textbooks, tutoring, educational therapies, transportation to and from a provider, as well as breakfast or lunch that's provided by the school, and assessment fees. Technology is also allowable, but that's limited to a certain percent of the student's annual award. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So how does this impact families seeking affordable childcare? It really expands their options. So while other states have similar school choice programs, Texas is actually the first to include students aged 3 and 4 who are also eligible for public pre-K. So this is opening the option for so many families who need full day care to receive that in a private pre-K program. And that's also a unique piece too. It's not just private K through 12 schools, it's also high quality accredited childcare programs. So both pre-K and kindergartners can take a TEFA account to a high quality provider. Okay, so you may have heard this program is well funded, but only 95,000 students statewide are expected to receive this funding per year. So the awards have gone out. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I wanted to give a little bit of context as to how these awards are going to be provided based on prioritization. So similar to the Child Care Services Program, when a family signs up for this program, they're prioritized based on certain needs. So the first level is children with a disability. Those are students that have an IEP or another documented need for special education services. So those are the number one students that get pulled, as well as their siblings. And then the next tiers, the next 3 tiers, are based on children who are members of households with a certain level of income. So the second tier, we would call that sort of a low income threshold. The third tier is kind of the mid-range, and then the fourth tier is above the 500% poverty line. So basically, we're prioritizing based on household income here. So let's go to the next slide and look at how this is kind of shaken out. So because funding is limited, we only had 95,000 slots. Could be more, could be less, depending on how much each student is funded. So based on the funding that they had availability for all of those tier 1 students to receive a TEFA account. So if that student had an IEP, they received an account. And then when they got to tier 2, they had not quite enough funding left to fund all of the students in tier 2. So what they did was award that via lottery. So they randomized the selection process and pulled those students randomly. And then all of the remaining students, tiers 2 through 4, the remaining in tier 2, and then the other ones are all currently on a wait list. So what's happening now is that parents have the option to choose to opt in or opt out of the program. If they've received that email, they have until July 15th to enroll and confirm their enrollment in a private school that is TEFA approved. If those parents choose to opt out, that could potentially free up slots. So there is an opportunity if you know someone or if you're on a wait list, there may be an opportunity that a slot opens up and your child gets selected later in the year. And if you have parents that maybe don't know or they haven't gotten a notification, make sure that they're double checking their email, and then they can also check the web portal where they applied to see if they've been selected or not. It should say it on there somewhere. Okay, so now let's talk about the funding and notification timelines. So again, we had notifications made at the end of April, so they have all been released. The first round of funding will go into students' accounts on July 1st of 2026. At that point, those students can then begin to pay for tuition at a school or whatever it is that they're planning to use their TEFA funds for. Those parents must enroll their child in a private school and confirm that they have enrolled in the Odyssey Marketplace by July 15th. That is the final deadline. If parents miss this deadline, they risk losing their TEFA account. This is very important. If your family has a TEFA account, that is very, very good. That the number of students, we had almost 300,000 applicants for this program. If they received a TEFA account, unless they really don't need it, they should definitely enroll so they don't lose access to it, because it won't be easy to get access again. And it's important to note that enrollment is kind of a two-stage process. Parents both need to go to the school and enroll their child in that school, and they also need to confirm their enrollment in the Odyssey Marketplace. So there's a two-pronged thing. They can't just go into the Odyssey Marketplace and say, I'm enrolled in this program, and then go to the program, because that program might actually not have an availability for their student. So it's important for families and those providers to be on the same page about whether or not that student can enroll in that program this year. Okay, so we talked a little bit about how many students have been awarded. We may have some people from outside the North Texas area, but this is a list of the students that were selected within counties in the DFW Metroplex. So both Tarrant and Dallas, and then the counties surrounding those two. So this is broken down by tier 1, special education and their siblings, and tier 2, the students that are below 200% federal poverty level. That's the left-hand box. And then on the right-hand box, you can see the number of total students by county. So for instance, in Tarrant County, we have a total of 7,876 students, pre-K through 12, that have received a TEFA account. This number is probably a little bit lower than the actual number of students, given that some of these counts were excluded to protect students' location privacy. So this may be more, or it could be less, depending on how many parents decide to opt into the program. But that's a pretty good chunk of students in the Tarrant County area. Based on that number, if we do the math and think through, okay, the percent of estimated pre-K students that we could expect to make up that total pre-K through 12 number, we would expect about 520 pre-K students to have received a TEFA account in Tarrant County. So that kind of gives you an idea of how many kids there are out there currently who may be looking for a place to enroll. They may be looking for a private full-day pre-K program, or they could be looking for a private school that provides pre-K through 12 services. Or they could have special education needs and be looking for services that help support them on that front. So, I think it's interesting to think about this in a way like these students are receiving $10,000 per year. If you think about the Child Care Services Program and how families receive this funding to take it to a private child care program or an after-school program, it's almost like we've added an extra 500 students to be able to do the same thing. It's a different program, but if you kind of think of it that way, we have given these families options. So maybe those 500 families, or some of them within the 500 families, need this option so that they can go to work. They need a full day option for their child. And now that they have this account, they can use that to pay for full day preschool. So it's really awesome. We're really excited for this opportunity for families. So yeah, this kind of gives you an idea. And then let's go to the next slide and show kind of the full breadth of the pre-K applications that were received. This is the data that shows the number of applications by grade level. And if you look at the very far right, that's the pre-K number. So you can see we had over 36,000 pre-K students apply for TEFA, the highest over every single grade level for school-aged children. That just shows an amazingly high demand for pre-K and especially full-day pre-K now that that's an option under TEFA. But then you notice that red bar, and that shows the number of students that weren't actually eligible for pre-K. Now, because pre-K does have additional eligibility criteria, not all families qualify for public pre-K. So we only actually have about half of that number, a little less than 20,000, that actually could potentially receive a TEFA account. Now, not all of these students will receive one this year, but it's a good indication to know like there are a lot of families that need this option. But maybe you've heard from a family who has a preschooler and maybe they submitted their application thinking they were eligible and it told them they're not eligible. That's because they didn't meet the qualifications for public pre-K. Okay, so I hope that data was interesting and insightful. Now let's get into some of the provider pieces and how to start implementing this program in your private pre-K program.
Hey, Jordan, before we transition to that, do you want me to pose some of the questions that are in the chat? I've been trying to answer, but they're specifically related to what you just covered. Is that okay, or we got another stopping point?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so there were questions around school-age children. Can they use their TEFA funding at a approved private school that is also a child care program? And so in this case, friends, what's happened is the parent probably had a young child, 3 or 4 years old, where they wanted to have them attend your private preschool pre-K program at your child care center. And on the application, they can put all of the children on there. And if one child gets approved, all children get approved, like what Jordan has said. So if that parent wants to use it for their 3 or 4-year-old, as well as say their 6th grader, that parent would have to have the 6th grader go to a private school that offers school for 6th graders. They cannot use that for school age children at a child care setting. And so sometimes it gets confusing for parents to understand that TEFA is specifically for grade level education for children. So in your cases, you're offering a high quality pre-K program for children ages 3, 4, and 5. So it works. But for a 7th grader, unless you are an approved private school to provide that, they can't use that with you. So there were a few questions around that. Someone asked about high quality pre-K requirements. We're about to jump into that, but we'll also try to link some more stuff in our email about where you can learn more about that. And then there was one question about the disability children being funded. The question was, they had a child who was funded, but they only received the lower amount, not the higher amount. And what we found is that children that are young, 3, 4, and 5 years old, likely don't have an IEP. And so they used the disability form to qualify for TEFA, and that gets them in the priority 1 or tier 1, which is great. But the IEP is what unlocks this next level of funding. And so since those children a lot of times don't have it, they don't have access to it, but the parents are encouraged to continue to work with their school district to have the children evaluated and perhaps update their application at another time. But it's very likely that that child is going to see that $10,000 funding while they're there with you. And so those were the questions that came through, Jordan, specifically to this area, and I'll keep them in the chat for others. But thanks for letting me interrupt.
Yeah, no, that was great. Yeah, the IEP issue, the ways that they approved the IEPs and brought students into tier 1 was a little bit confusing, but that was a great way to clear that up. So thanks for doing that. I saw one other question. 5-year-olds qualify for high quality pre-K, but only for the school days, not the summer. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but the way that it will work is that, I mean, if the provider is providing instruction, there are no limits to the days that they can provide that instruction. That is the private school's choice on how they are, teaching their students. So it can be full day, full year. It doesn't have to follow a traditional school hours. Okay, sorry, let's jump into the private provider qualifications, and we'll talk about that piece a little bit more later on. Okay, so can we go to the next slide? There we go. Okay, so to be an approved provider, if your program is not currently approved, if you haven't gone through the there's a process that you need to go to be TEFA approved. So for pre-K providers, you have to first meet these qualifications. So you must be in good standing with DFPS, have no action taken against your license in the past 24 months. And you must also have one of the following of these blue options here. So you can be nationally accredited, you can be a Texas Rising Star 3 or 4-star provider, a Texas School Ready participant, have an existing partnership with a school district for pre-K, or you can also have an accreditation recognized by the Texas Private School Administration, and that also includes the Montessori accreditation, the official Montessori accreditation. So in addition to that, you also need to apply. So if your program has not applied to become TEFA approved, before you can accept students, you have to go through this process. So if you haven't yet, we highly recommend jumping on that now, considering that the July 15th enrollment deadline is fast approaching and parents are looking for options. If you've already gone through this, great. You likely have access to the Odyssey Marketplace. You will have access to enroll your students within the Odyssey Marketplace. And we will drop this link for those providers who haven't yet applied either in the chat or later on. Actually, let me do it right now because I have it with me. Okay, so that was just a quick reminder. Now let's talk about some of the requirements, including the high quality pre-K requirements. So the slide that I just walked through are kind of the baseline requirements. And whenever you get into the application for private pre-K programs under TEFA, there is this box. It says, I affirm my school meets these criteria as outlined in section 29.171 Education Code, and that I meet the following. Okay, what does that mean? Maybe we're not all familiar with section 29.1.1 Education Code, like a policy wonk like I am is familiar with it. So we're here to help explain and help get you acquainted with what this means for your program, because this part is actually very, very important. So TEFA pre-K providers, in addition to meeting the baseline requirements, must also meet the high quality pre-K requirements. This means that they have to employ in their pre-K classroom a certified or qualified teacher. They must implement a high-quality curriculum that follows the Texas pre-kindergarten guidelines and does not use Common Core-based national standards. They must administer a program evaluation approved by the Texas Education Commissioner, and those are listed below. And they must provide 75,600 operational minutes for 4-year-olds and 32,400 operational minutes for 3-year-olds per year. Okay, let's talk about each of these step by step. So the certified or qualified teacher, we will go into depth a little bit more on what this means. The second one, implementing a high quality curriculum. If you are TRS approved, you or have another accreditation, you are likely already using a high quality curriculum that follows these guidelines. If you're not sure if your curriculum meets these guidelines, we recommend reaching out to your TRS mentor or someone who has supported you with your curriculum and double check against the pre-K guidelines to make sure that you're meeting this requirement. The next one is to administer a program evaluation. Circle progress monitoring is free for providers under the Texas Rising Star program. So you should have access to this and should be able to begin implementing it within your program during the 26-27 school year and beyond if you continue to participate in the TEFA program. You also must provide those operational minutes, but considering the fact that most childcare programs are operating full day, full year, you will most likely meet these requirements, considering that you are providing educational instruction for longer than these required minutes per year. This is really more of like a district. If a school district is providing pre-K from 8 to 11 or 8 to 3, they have to make sure that they're meeting these instructional minutes. But most private pre-K programs are already going above and beyond this requirement. So the reason that we are highlighting this is that programs who are audited next year will be checked against these things. So if you are not meeting these requirements, then TEFA has the right to remove you from the program and not allow you back on. So this is very important to keep in mind, and we'll help walk you through these requirements. And also we'll be providing more information over the coming months to help make sure that you have everything that you need to fulfill the TEFA program requirements. Okay, let's go to the certified and qualified teacher piece, because we know this is a big one. Okay, so under TEFA, what does certified and qualified mean? Well, to be a certified pre-K teacher, let's look at the option 1 here. You're a certified pre-K teacher. That means you have a bachelor's degree, a teaching certification in EC3 or EC6, and one of the following. You have an associate's or bachelor's degree in early childhood or a related field. You have a CDA or other approved early education credential, a Montessori accreditation, 8 or more years of experience in a TRS or nationally accredited program, or an equivalent qualification. So that means you are certified. If you have a teacher who meets these qualifications in your preschool classroom, then that's great. You meet this requirement. We understand that most private programs are not going to have a certified teacher in their classroom. So most likely you can meet these requirements based on option 2, having a qualified pre-K teacher who is supervised by a certified pre-K teacher. And we'll get into what that looks like in a second. Let's look at what qualified pre-K teacher means. So a qualified pre-K teacher has 8+ years of experience in a TRS or nationally accredited program, or they could have 2 years or more of experience and one of the following options: a CDA, Montessori accreditation, degree in early childhood, or an equivalent. So there's 2 options: 8 years or 2 years plus. So this means they're qualified to teach in the classroom, but they must be certified to teach, I'm sorry, they must be supervised by a certified pre-K teacher who meets those requirements under option 1. If there's any questions about this, please put them in the chat. I know this is a lot of information, so we'll send these slides out so that you have them. And now let's talk through a little bit more about what this could look like. Okay, so let's say that you have, maybe your teacher doesn't meet that certified pre-K option 1, but your director is pre-K certified. They meet those criteria. They can then be that supervising teacher for a qualified classroom teacher. So you have both the certification for the director and you have the qualifications for the preschool teacher. So that works great. That means like you are meeting the requirement. There is option 2. You have an outside contractor come in. This is if you have your preschool teacher is meeting that qualified option 2 piece, but maybe you don't have someone in your program that meets the certification, the teacher certification for pre-K. You can then contract with an outside certified teacher to supervise that classroom periodically. There's no requirement under law to say how often that teacher needs to come into the classroom. We highly recommend having someone who can help you achieve the requirements under TEFA that we just talked about earlier. And I'll talk a little bit more about what supervising teachers can do in a moment. So this is probably an option that many programs can use. A couple of options, and we'll be working to create more of a structure that you can build upon and like maybe provide some sample MOUs and help connect you with people in the community who might be able to help connect you with teachers. But we recommend right now doing some research. If you have a qualified teacher and you're just missing that certified teacher, we recommend maybe getting with other programs in the area and you can come together and contract with a teacher between all of your programs and say, okay, we are going to pay this teacher to periodically come and monitor our classroom, support our teachers, and make sure that we're meeting these TEFA requirements. And then that will help provide some documentation that says, yes, we are meeting these requirements for TEFA. You could also ask your current mentors if you have a TRS mentor, or maybe if you're in the Texas, oh my gosh, I always forget, the Texas School Ready program, you might already be connected to a pre-K certified teacher. So ask around and talk with the people that you currently know and are currently helping you achieve high quality and see if they might be interested in connecting with you and being that supervising teacher. And then there's also always the option, there are a lot of retired teachers in the community who may also be interested. So ask around, start making connections and see who might be able to help meet this requirement. The third option, if you do not have, sorry, let's go back 2 slides. So if your program has no qualified staff, maybe you don't have a certified teacher and you don't have a qualified teacher, you will need to find a way to achieve compliance with this requirement before you accept TEFA funding. This is in the case that if you are audited in the coming year and it is shown that you were accepting TEFA funding without having fulfilled the attestation that you would provide this certified or supervising instructor, then you may be deemed ineligible for the program. So make sure that you have all your ducks in a row before you accept funding. And just know that parents are receiving this funding on July 1st. So if they are expecting to enroll in your program, they may be wanting to pay tuition on July 1st. So make sure that you reach out to your community, find a way to help get qualified staff in your center, and then try to meet that outside contractor role. Okay, so you might be asking, what does the supervising teacher do? So like I mentioned earlier, a supervising teacher can oversee multiple pre-K classrooms. They don't have to be there every day. They need to be there to help ensure that your program is, one, meeting TEFA compliance. So that means they're making sure that your curriculum is being implemented with fidelity, that it's meeting those pre-K guidelines, and that you're also completing the required student assessment. So that could be Circle or one of the other assessments that we had listed under there. So those are two primary functions within the TEFA structure that you should be thinking about. But they can also support you with other things to help improve your classroom quality, help improve your student outcomes. So they can help provide classroom instruction support to your teachers, help their teachers meet the developmental needs of your students, and then provide just continuous quality improvement. So this can really be a great strengthening structure for your preschool classrooms to help you improve your quality if you have a supervising teacher who comes in on a regular basis and provides coaching and support to your classroom teachers. So really, it's kind of an opportunity to help your teachers grow and learn. This is something that CCA does within our pre-K today system. So we've firsthand seen the benefits of providing regular coaching to teachers. So this is definitely something that can help support them. Okay. Any questions about this one, Shaniqua?
Yeah, we had a couple of questions. I expected a lot more, but we just had a few.
Okay.
So one of the questions was, it was a great question. A provider says, hey, I have someone who I think meets this at one of my programs. Could they supervise more than one program? And the answer is yes. What we
Yes.
would suggest is making for sure preparing for audits, right? Maybe enhance their job description where it shows that they are a supervising teacher who's responsible for supervising multi-sites. In addition to making for sure that you have their documents that show that they are a certified teacher. So maybe that's their certification and CDA or whatever it is. So just make sure you get that paperwork in that staff person's file and update that job description, and you're probably going to be good to go. Another question came in around, let's see, where was it? Multiple sites, job description. Oh, then there was a technical question where someone had been in contact with someone from Odyssey who said that it's not required for a teacher to meet any of these qualifications other than be a part of a TRS program. And that piece there, I think that is if they are meeting that definition that Jordan went over earlier about the qualified. There are some other things that they may need to have, but the supervising teacher piece is still a part of this process. Like one of the reasons why providers are able to access this funding or be an approved provider site, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, is because you are operating pre-K in your buildings. And that means that you are meeting the high quality pre-K requirements. So I'm hesitant to say that that person is wrong, but I would just encourage that provider and anyone to do more research on your own and visit the TEFA sites to be able to understand what you're reading through that site, as well as using resources like CCA and other community-based resources to understand the program and what it is you signed up for. Let's see, I think one more question just came in. Help desk questions. To be sure, okay, so I'm reading this off. To be sure I understand TEFA funds are available July 1st. If we enroll the child before then, do the parents cover the cost? So go ahead, Jordan. I see you shaking your head. Yeah.
Yeah, so they would need to cover any costs before that TEFA program goes into effect. What'll happen is that the parent will be set up in your portal, the Odyssey system. And so whenever that funding becomes available in that student's account, you then have the option to draw down funds from that account whenever tuition payment is due. So you'll have an agreement set up with the parent. Here's how often we're going to pay for tuition. Here's how much. So you won't have access to that funding until July 1st.
Okay. One more question just came in. Can the supervising teacher have a degree in a related field? And, yeah, the answer is yes. Go ahead, Jordan. I see
Yes.
you get ready to talk more about it.
I don't have much to say. I was just going to say,
Okay.
yes, it can be in early childhood or related fields. That's the requirement.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sticking to
And
that
again,
language.
the slides will be shared with you, so you can go back and look like specifically at your teacher's degrees, because they may have a degree in psychology, it could be in child development, sociology, whatever the case might be, and you can look to see how they fit into that. Let's see, our teachers that are in school but not yet graduated qualify. Seems like they would need to have all of their qualifications in place by July 1 is the magic date to be compliant. So if they're still in school and their degree has not been conferred by July 1, chances are that teacher's not going to be eligible to be the teacher that you have on record. Now, if you've got somebody else that can fill the gap from July to maybe October and that teacher graduates in October, then they can then at that point become the teacher, but you at all times need to have somebody that is meeting those requirements. Okay.
I saw another question about whether or not the parents will receive the funding directly to them. So it kind of works similar to the Child Care Services Program. Parents, there's an account that the student receives. It's called an education savings account. So the state puts money into an account. The parent cannot pull directly from that account. They can only use it on approved services within the Odyssey system. So if your program is approved to receive TEFA funds, they can choose within the system to use that money for tuition and fees. So that's kind of how it works. The parents never actually receive the money in their pocket like maybe a more direct voucher system would work.
Okay, so two questions came in. One for one provider. How do I do this job description? What we suggest is once you get these slides, look at what it says about the high quality pre-K requirements. And so literally on your job description, you can maybe even name it supervising teacher, or maybe that's an extra duty. And then on there, you will say helps to ensure that program has 75,600 minutes of operational hours. And these are things that are coming directly from the slides. So almost copy what you see on the slides and probably insert that, including this teacher must also maintain their certification, which includes, and literally copy what we have on the slides and put that into your job description. And you can fancy it up using, a peer or AI to make it sound like an actual job description, but keep it simple, nothing too fancy. Just make sure whatever it is that we've shared here is in that job description so it's easy to present during an audit. And then Jennifer asked a question, Jordan, and this is one, I'm trying to make sure I understand it well. So it says, we can wait to start receiving funding until we're ready, right? For example, we have a teacher, question, it went away. A teacher is finishing their CDA, will access funding in September when she's done. So I think what I'm reading that to say is, can we pause and not receive it until we're positioned to receive it? But I think there's something with the parent, like the parent may then have to choose another site because you're not ready to, that child can't start because the program's not ready. So you risk losing that child because that child would need to have their TEFA funds. They would need to be enrolled. So let's see, Jennifer, can I take you off of mute? Oh, I can. So Jennifer, you have your hand raised. Thank you. We're going to try this out so you can ask your question live. Go for it. Oh, did it work? Allow mic.
Okay, I
Okay,
think it's
Jennifer, I
working
don't.
now.
Okay, very good. Go for
Okay,
it, Jennifer.
thank you, Shaniqua. So if I understand properly, if they get funded on July 1, maybe the child's not has not entered the proper classroom yet, they're about to move up to the next class or the teacher's not ready. As long as the parent is on board, we don't have to start accessing the funding on July 1, correct?
No, you can access the funding whenever works for you and the parent. I think I understand your question. Like, okay, if we're not pulling funds, does that mean that we have to meet this requirement right now? I'm not exactly sure. I think it depends on how an auditor would go into this and review it. If they're going to use like, okay, on August, like this is when we expect the program to be meeting everything. Um, I'm a little unclear on those timelines too, but for the purposes of now, our guidance is like if you're accepting funds, make sure that you're approved and meeting all of the requirements
By
in
July 1.
case of an audit next year.
Okay, but some programs may not even start their school year until, let's just say, September 1 for,
Mhm.
right? And those programs would not access funding until September 1, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I know in the Odyssey portal, you also have the opportunity to schedule how you receive funds and like when it's I think it's weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, what have you. And so I'm sure you've probably set that up in a way that works. The only thing I would worry about is just that parent. Like I don't know how Odyssey works in terms of notifying the parent that this provider or this location is prepared to receive your child. Yes, proceed with enrollment, or if it's going to say, something about on the provider's end, something about this is not quite ready for your child to use their TEFA funds here, and encourage them to choose a different spot. But it sounds like if you're just simply saying it's a calendar year, and that's like in your operational handbook, and that's when you start pulling down funds, I think that's different than, you know, we're not ready. You're ready. This is just when my calendar year starts. I think is probably the
Yeah.
simpler way of explaining that.
Okay, and then also just to clarify, Shaniqua, oh my gosh, I just completely lost my train. Oh, these are kids that we already have. These are not kids that are coming in. These are children that are already enrolled currently. If that changes anything, do you see what I'm saying? They're already here with us and they got funded.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just feels.
So I would think
I think it's a good question.
if the
I
parent were
think we can
willing to
bring this
wait.
back. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Yeah, I just would think if the parent was willing, I understand that it's a hardship on them because they're not able to access the money quite yet. So, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate it. If you guys can get any more clarification, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll double check and see if we can get some more clarification on that. I'm sure Odyssey will have an answer for us.
Yeah. Okay, just a couple questions came in, but I know we need to get to the marketing piece and we do not want to hold you. So let me move through the marketing piece. We'll come back to the chat because we've got some built-in Q&A pieces. The marketing pieces won't take nearly as long as some of the other stuff. But we did wanted to just take the opportunity to make for sure we could talk with you about like strategically positioning your program to be visible in the community when it comes to TEFA. Because if you look on social media, the news, like TEFA is trending and families are trying to figure out, so where are all the TEFA providers? Where can I go? So let's talk about making sure they know that you are an option. So first and foremost, for those, it feels like some people are still getting used to the Odyssey website and a lot of the tools that are available to them there. There is this one, if you scan this QR code, you are able to go to this landing page that takes you to a TEFA toolkit that allows you to use TEFA branded banners and pictures that you can add to a variety of materials that already exist in your program. You can use these on your email signatures. You can add this to your Facebook page. You can, get a big old sign and put it in your windows, add it to your van, whatever the case might be. But these TEFA branded icons and banners and pictures are available for you to use free of use. And parents recognize this TEFA branding. So we highly encourage you to access the toolkit and to use this to your advantage to make for sure that people recognize your program as an approved provider for, I believe everybody on this call are child care providers. So as an approved provider for pre-kindergarten. Additionally, what we are also seeing is that parents are calling and they're asking questions about TEFA. And so if you've not already, take some time to familiarize your office. Like if you've got somebody who answers your phones early in the morning or later in the evening while you're not there, perhaps there's somebody who is working on someone that is like working your social media or your, your Brightwell, probably consider arming them with information about TEFA so that way they are aware that, yes, we are a TEFA approved provider, and help them be able to answer some basic questions. And so even if they can't do anything beyond just confirming that, yes, we are approved to provide TEFA, let me get your name and information and have my director follow up with you, it's definitely going to be worthwhile to do that. We also encourage you to do the same for teachers, your teaching staff, is particularly those that are in your pre-K classrooms, but really all teaching staff should probably be aware of this. And we encourage you to use very simple language and clear messages that help to make for sure that things that parents are reading, because this is new, right? Things that parents are reading is matching up to what you are saying. So for example, TEFA does not technically fund childcare. What TEFA is doing is it is funding pre-kindergarten that is offered in community-based settings, and that includes childcare programs and family childcare programs. And so for you, what that means is when parents are calling, they're saying, do you offer pre-K? Yes, you do offer state-funded pre-K. This is why your program is a TEFA approved provider. So we just want to make for sure that you are familiar with the language that parents are hearing, that the state is saying you are meeting, and that you are also using that language when you're interacting with parents. Next, we know, again, because this is really, a popular topic and trending, this is probably a good time to encourage your families to use their word of mouth. We know that families talk to one another when it comes to care and education. Your reputation a lot of times is in the hands of the parents that you currently serve or have served in the past. So we encourage you to take some time to, if you've not done this before, understand the power of Google reviews and Yelp reviews. Ask your parents to take some time to go online and offer a review about your program on highly visible platforms such as Google and Yelp. If you've got social media, have them post a testimonial, have them engage with your page, because what that does too, there's an algorithm that makes certain programs and certain pages kind of come up more often based on, the activity of a parent. And so this is one of these things where TEFA is popular and people are literally Googling, where can I take my 4-year-old for TEFA Fort Worth? Where can I take my 3-year-old for TEFA Midlothian, wherever you are. So we encourage you to make for sure that your program is popping up, and when it does, parents can see, oh, okay, this program is a really good program. They've got a really high rating. Again, when we talk about visibility, this is a simple flyer I just ran it through AI and had it created just to give an idea of what a flyer could look like that you may want to disperse, again, through social media and other means. And I inserted this TEFA logo here on the bottom right corner. And so if you've got some flyers that you already have in distribution, next time you work on getting flyers together, please do add the TEFA logo. If you are a person that emails a lot, add that TEFA logo to the bottom of your email signature. If you are on Facebook or Instagram, your background or your the ribbon, or I think it's your profile picture, change something so that way TEFA jumps out so parents know that you are an approved TEFA provider. So again, these are very simple things, but in the haste of like doing day-to-day programmatic things, like taking time to market this really hot topic right now is really going to be very, very important to make for sure parents do not pass you by. Next, if you've not done so, this is the website for the program finder. And so we encourage you to take a moment, search your school by either putting in your zip code or whatever it is that you would like to search. Make sure your school is showing up. They've also given schools the opportunity to create like a bio, if you will, or a profile where you can update some really important things about your program that parents are looking for. So take some time to make sure your program shows up the way you want it to show up. And then also look to see who else in your zip code is offering, who else is able to receive TEFA funds. And this helps you too to understand if, hey, it's just me for a 10-mile radius. I really have a good opportunity to try to draw people in. Or maybe it's 10 other providers within a 10-mile radius. And then that lets you know too that you've got to really be strategic about your marketing to make sure parents are choosing you. So do take some time to look to see how your profile is showing up on this website. And then as I'm getting ready to pass it back over to Jordan, I think this is one of the ones that the policy team here, they've been working in tandem with our communications team. Jordan, do you want to tell them about what's going on with these TEFA yard signs?
Yeah, so we have over 100 yard signs available for free for any pre-K TEFA approved provider in the DFW area. So if you would like a yard sign, come pick one up. We are offering them now until May 15th or until supplies last. So we'll be available. The window is like 8:30 to 4:30 every day. So you can drop in every day except Saturday, Sunday. Drop in, pick one up. All we ask is that you provide your name, your program title, and your contact info. So yeah, don't miss out. We have a lot of yard signs and they're free of charge. So that'll help you advertise to parents. Oh, where are we located? I forgot to add the address.
I'll put it in the
I'll
chat.
put it
I'll
in
do it.
there. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a good spot to ask, see if there are any questions. Jordan, I know you were manning the chat, so while you read through the questions and ask them, I'm going to drop somebody said the QR code wasn't working, so I'm going to drop that link and then I'll put our address
Okay.
in the chat as well. So go for it.
Yeah, I didn't see many marketing questions, but I just saw one from Tanya. What if the information is incorrect on the school search sign? I would reach out to Odyssey. I've been saying that a lot in the chat, but definitely reach out to Odyssey. They're the ones operating this program, so they're super responsive, super helpful. If you can email them or get on the phone with them, they should be able to help correct anything that maybe doesn't look right on the page, or help you navigate the online portal. It looks like a lot of people had questions about how to get students enrolled on the portal or how to draw funding down. So if you have any questions, reach out to them. They are the tech people. We're just the program people here to give you guidance on how to participate. I see, oh, we have already picked out a yard sign. Can we produce copies or the yard signs on our own? You've already picked up. Oh, yes, because this banner is the exact same banner that Shaniqua just shared in the QR code. It's in that toolkit. So you can take that banner and use it. That is free for any TEFA program or really anyone, I guess. But so yes, you can create this. If a family receives CCMS and is approved, how should they proceed? We have guidance in a couple of slides that we will help answer this. Also has decisions made about how TEFA works with pre-K partnerships. Okay, I think we should go into the next section because we are about to answer these questions right now.
Okay, and then Jordan, as you're working your way into that one, I knew there were some questions when I was talking that did not get answered. I think people wanted to revisit the wait list and that may naturally work as you're talking, but like what does the wait list look like, the lottery and that thing. So we'll go ahead and go, but it may naturally fit into that.
Yes, okay. I can definitely address that when we get closer to the end here.
Okay.
Okay, so payment, billing, and blending funds. This is the fun stuff. So like we said, TEFA programs will, I mean, there will be an audit next year. We don't know who will be audited, how many programs will be audited, but there will be a statewide audit of TEFA funding. So we want to make sure that you are prepared to show that you have been using these funds correctly. So what does it mean to use the TEFA funds correctly? Well, TEFA funds can be used for educational expenses for the student that are included in the tuition fee. So this includes paying the teacher of the classroom, paying for transportation, paying for meals, tutoring and enrichment, and any required uniforms within your school. So if that student is paying tuition for, and all of those things are included in the tuition fee, you can use those funds on those items as long as they are being used for the educational portion of the day. That is in quotations and bold because it is quite important. You have to be able to show that for the hours that you are charging that student, you are providing curriculum-based instruction, like we talked about a couple sections back. So if you have, say, a section of time in your center that is before and after care, and you charge families for before and after care using TEFA, you have to be able to demonstrate that that is also a curriculum led or lesson plan led time period for those students. You are still providing pre-K educational services. That is because this program is intended for that. As opposed to the child care services program, they're really helping parents access quality child care so their parents can go to work. TEFA is really about educating students, helping students have educational choice. So you have to be able to show, yes, these students are learning. Check the boxes based on that. So what does this mean for billing? You, first of all, have to charge every TEFA family your posted tuition rate. You cannot increase tuition for a TEFA family just because that $10,000 is not or is higher than your posted tuition rate. It has to be your posted tuition rate. So that is very, very important. And you can only charge for separate items. So let's say you charge a student tuition, but then you're also transporting them on a field trip. If you're not charging all of the other students on that bus an additional fee, you cannot then itemize that fee to a student's TEFA account. You have to only charge them what is included in the tuition. If you're billing those things separately, like if other students are required to purchase meals at your school, then you can bill that separately for that student. So I think that's pretty clear. If you have any questions about that, feel free to put them in the chat. Let's go to the next slide. The number one question, what if a family is receiving childcare services, they have a childcare scholarship, and they also receive a TEFA account? So we don't know how many families this is going to happen to, but it definitely can happen, right? So because this is so new, there's not the most robust guidance in the world right now. But what we will say is that with CCS and TEFA, if you have a family that comes in and has both you and the family need to notify the board immediately. What I mean by there's not robust guidance is that we don't know that the system is going to automatically be able to say this student is receiving TEFA, so now their CCS needs to be reduced. You will be responsible for telling the workforce board, hey, this student has both. They need to be dropped down to the blended CCS rate. So that means they'll be getting a little less for CCS, and that will then pay for the non-instructional hours of the pre-K day. So you can see this little guidance here. This is actually from the TEA guidance with pre-K partnerships. So you have those pre-K hours, 7:30 to 3. You can charge the family using TEFA for those hours. And then that before care and that after care is what you can charge for their childcare scholarship. So again, you need to figure out what are my pre-K hours and what are my before and after hours. And you need to document that. So there's a little equation here. The blended rate equals your operational hours minus 6 hours. So hopefully that's helpful. And then whenever you're billing those TEFA families, you have to make sure that their tuition rate is now proportional to the tuition rate for non-TEFA families. So again, you cannot just charge them the same $10,000 that you would for a family using it for the full day. So make sure you're doing the math and keeping track of all the hours and the rates that you're charging families, so that if in the event of an audit, you have that documentation on hand. Okay, so some general best practices to consider whenever you are signing up for in the Odyssey Marketplace and billing parents. One, you may have already done this, but make sure you have a designated business bank account. We know some programs might be using their personal accounts for tuition. Make sure you have a separate account so that you can better track expenses whenever they're going in and out of your account. And it's something that you can also hook up to the Odyssey Marketplace so that you don't have your personal account out there. Define clear payment and billing processes. So again, make sure that you're paying attention to your hours, make sure you have what your rates are going to be, and make sure that you're not charging families any differently. Use some detailed spreadsheets, make sure you're tracking all of these things, the amounts, the funding sources, so you can have something to hand over really easily if someone comes knocking. And then clearly itemize where you're spending your funds. I think this is all pretty good. And then be audit ready. So if you'll need to cooperate if there's an audit, be prepared to provide these documentations. We don't exactly know what the audit process will look like, but you may not be reached out to directly by an auditor. It may be a program administrator. So if you are ever unsure, you can always reach out to Odyssey and ask what that process is going to look like. And again, maintain appropriate records. You don't have to track everything down to the nitty-gritty details, but it never hurts. Okay, any questions on this one?
Let's see, I too did not see a lot of questions. There was a couple questions around tuition, and questions were if I have a published rate, but then I also offer discounts based on income, like what is it that I need to disclose? And correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan, but I believe the guidance has been, what your published rate is, and if there's like a scholarship or a donor or something that supports a portion of that child's tuition, then that's that. But in terms of like generally, it's what's in your handbook for that particular age group or classroom. Okay. So that's the guidance that we're given on that. And then I think someone mentioned that they were going to do a tuition increase. So again, whatever you have in your handbook, just make for sure your handbook is up to date. Your parent handbook is up to date with the fees that are going to be charged to families, just so that way there are no questions around there. Okay, and so then let's see. We've got here, so Jordan, I'm gonna read it and you can answer as I'm reading, or we can tag team it. It just came through. So I operate a 24-hour licensed childcare home. My pre-K instructional hours are 8 to 11, and then again from 12 to 3. Children may remain in care for extended hours through CCMS up to 12 hours of child care services due to parents' work. Since the children are receiving additional child care services beyond the instructional hours, would these children still be required to be paid at the blended rate, or would the standard CCMS rate apply for the extended child care hours?
That is a great question. Probably that's a good question, Roslyn. Do you have an answer, Shaniqua? I feel like we should probably get with TWC or the Workforce Board to see how this might work for those students.
Yeah, we know a lot of our family child care programs are in a really unique situation where they provide a variety of programs. And so my gut would tell me that there might be a unique consideration for those who are operating beyond the traditional, hours of care that children are in when we look at the traditional workday. So we're going to follow up, Roslyn, because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. This is so new that we could say something now and then there's a meeting happening and there's some official guidance coming. So we will follow up with you on that one. I think there were some more questions earlier, Rosalind. I know, let me go scroll back up. There were some
Oh,
questions
yeah.
around, okay, did you get to that one? I don't know. I think I was talking when you maybe saw that one or what have
I
you.
saw it. There is an explainer about TEFA. So Rosalind is basically asking how does the whole selection process work and how long will families be on the wait list for? How the priority ranking system. We did talk about this a little bit at the beginning, but the Education Freedom Accounts program, they have an explainer that really goes in depth about how this process works. So there's priority groups. Children are selected from those groups. And if there's not enough funding, then they get put into a lottery system. With the wait list, so it again, this is the first year that this program has happened. So it's the first year of its existence. It's been stood up within a couple of months, which is wild to think about. It's been stood up in less than a year. So there are a lot of, I think, little details that are kind of being figured out as we go. So when we think about wait lists and when families will be like, if a family drops out of the program, does that mean a student automatically gets accepted? I don't know that we necessarily know that information yet. It could be that it's on a yearly basis. We do know that applications do happen once per year. So like there was an application window this year that started from February to March, I
Mhm.
think. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so families had that window to apply. So it will likely be the same next year, but we don't really know. They may iterate upon that process and be like, we can do it better this way. So I wouldn't necessarily like stick with one thing. So there's no estimated wait time for wait lists. Um, Whether providers can view or influence placements. So parents can choose wherever they want to go. So that's the beauty of the system is that they have the educational freedom to take their funding wherever they choose. So I'm not, maybe Rosalind, we can talk later about what you mean if they can view placements. And then CCS and other program eligibilities, like if a family is maybe on SNAP or maybe they currently have CCS, there's no like there are no priority placements based on a family's current eligibility for other programs. It's solely based on income and for some families, whether or not they've attended public school before, if they're higher income family. So really it's that special education, income, and those are the kind of the two big ones.
And see, another question was posed, a couple questions were posed, and it was around how you charge families for the pre-K portion of the day and then the before and after school portion of the day. And really, there is no cookie cutter answer for this. It really boils down to you determining how much it costs to operate your pre-K portion of the day. And once you work with, if it's you and an assistant director, you and an accounting, a bookkeeper, once you determine what that is, then that is your published rate for your pre-K. And then if it's a different rate for your before and after school, then you're going to publish that rate as well. If I'm thinking about, if I'm in the shoes of a director owner or an owner, I'm thinking about how I can maximize the drawdown of that $10,000. And I am, looking to make for sure that, okay, my program costs this much. Does that, touch that $10,000 mark? So definitely make sure you put some pen to paper. And if math is not your strong suit, this is probably one of those times where you may want to contract out somebody, some type of financial advisor, bookkeeper to help you, plan for what the financial cost to operate your program is, so that way you are maximizing it. So the short answer is yes, you can charge for the two different parts of the day, but it would need to be the same for all children. You can't just say your TEFA kids, this is what your pre-K rate is, and this is what my non-TEFA babies pre-K rate is. It's what does it cost to operate pre-K? And that needs to be in your handbook, and the state would expect that you're charging that across the board for pre-K. So I know it's not a straightforward answer, but it's going to vary case by case. And then another question, so if a child qualifies for pre-K through our pre-K partnership and they also receive TEFA, how does that work? Um, that's another question, like that's an opportunity for really the parent to really understand what is in front of them and to make an informed decision. As the director, I would, make sure the parent understands what TEFA is and what the pre-K partnership is, and the parent can ultimately decide. I don't believe the state would want a provider telling a parent which one to choose, but certainly just making for sure that they understand what that looks like for the child to either be dually enrolled or not. But again, it goes back to just making for sure that the parent is aware of what these two funding sources look like.
And I will say an important piece of the TEFA program is that the student cannot be enrolled in a public school district in a manner that draws down funding to that district. So if you are in a pre-K partnership and you have a student who is currently enrolled in the school district through that partnership, and they want to use the TEFA funds at your program, they would then have to unenroll from the school district. They could not be drawing down funds for
Dually
that
enrolled.
district. So,
Yeah.
so that's just something to consider.
Yeah, that parent would really have to understand the two funding sources and make an informed decision. Okay. I think, Jordan, we might be clear to keep going. I think we have a couple
Yeah.
more slides, and I'll keep going through the chat to see if there's anything that we've missed.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, we just wanted to share a couple of updates about our upcoming events and some resources that we have for providers. So we are hosting an in-person training for pre-K providers in the DFW area. This is a free training. It'll be full day on Saturday, June 13th. And here's the location of our office, 3000 East Belknap, Fort Worth. That's the Child Care Associates office. From 11 to 4, we will be there providing tips about getting financially ready. So how to enroll these TEFA students, how to receive this funding, more audit readiness, fun stuff. And then in the afternoon, we will be sharing more about how you can meet the program requirements of TEFA. We hope to have a lot more about the certified and qualified teacher requirements, potentially some draft MOUs or contracts that you can use to contract with an outside teacher to help meet the requirement, and then some more info about marketing your program. So hopefully it'll be a great place to connect with other TEFA approved programs, potentially find a way to help connect with other certified teachers who can help you meet these requirements. So please feel free to come. We are providing lunch as well, so you have a full day together. And then, so that's on the 13th from 11 to 4. If you're not able to make that, we understand not everyone is in the Fort Worth area. It might be a bit of a drive. There is a virtual session that we will be hosting that's a condensed version of this in-person training. And that's that bottom QR code that you're seeing here. That's on July 1st at 12:30 to 2 p.m. That's the date that accounts are funded. So hopefully it'll be timely. But we definitely wanted to make sure we had these available to you all before parents have an enrollment deadline on the 15th. So please attend. We'd love to see you there. And then we also have a website available. This is where we host all of our resources for TEFA. Again, we're not the operators for TEFA. We're just an organization trying to help families and providers get engaged and access early learning resources. So we have a family web page and then also an early learning program page where we have some guidance, and we will be posting the webinar here as well as sending it out via email afterwards. So take a look around, and if you have any questions or suggestions for things we might be able to add later on, feel free to send us an email. Okay, and then if you'd like to also send us some feedback about today, please scan this QR code. We have a 3-question survey for you. You can tell us what you think about the webinar, what you might change or wish we had included today. And then also we'd love to hear what you need to be more successful in the TEFA program so that we can bring those things to our next trainings, gather all the knowledge from the amazing people around us who know all these beautiful things about early learning, finance, and programs. So please give us some feedback. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate your time. Again, yes, we will send the slides and the webinar to everyone who attended and registered. So be on the lookout in your inbox. Probably Monday timeframe is when I'll get those sent out. So are there any other questions, Shaniqua, that we had?
No, friend, I think we got all of them answered. And so again, when the slides come out, if there's something that was not answered that you wanted us to answer, just feel free to reply back and we will work hard to get you the answer that you need. So thank you again for your time on this Friday. We hope you have a lovely weekend and happy Mother's Day to all the moms and moms alike. So
Yes, happy Mother's Day. Thanks you guys for coming. Have a good weekend.
I